Hi, and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. Hi, I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. And today we are very thrilled to chat with a guest. And she is Melissa from Digital Scrapbook headquarters in Perth. Hi, Melissa. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm very excited to be on my first Australian podcast.
Yay!
Woo! Fabulous.
We feel very flattered.
Yes, absolutely. Lovely to have you with us.
So, Melissa, let's dive straight in and given your business name, we have to assume that you're a scrapbooker. So, can you tell us and our listeners a little bit more about yourself and how it all started?
So, my name's Melissa Shanhun. I've got a strangely spelt surname, but that's how it's pronounced. And I started Digital Scrapbooking HQ, which, is a bit of a mouthful. But I started that back in 2011 because I was a really keen digital scrapbooker. And the reason I got into that area was because I was living in Kalgoorlie, which is about 8 hours east of Perth. It's a regional centre known for mining, but it's really just like a little town, 35,000 people. Mm-hmm. We had a scrapbook store there. And my friend, one of my friends gave me a scrapbook album as a wedding present. And so I was going to this scrapbook store to buy some more supplies. And we didn't have a spotlight in Cal. So, that's probably where a lot of Aussies might go, or their local scrapbook store. Yes. So I went there, and I, as a newly married, just moved my whole life out to Kalgoorlie, had no job. I kind of got a bit of sticker shock when I saw how much everything cost, like $1 for a piece of paper. Uh-oh, I can't afford this. So I borrowed, as any, poor person will, I went to the library and I borrowed magazines from the library. And I was reading the Australian Scrapbook magazine, creating keepsakes and all those kind of magazines. Right. And then because I'm a bit of a reader, I was like reading all the captions under the pictures, and I was reading the journaling on one page, and they were saying how they got into digital scrapbooking and how there was all these free supplies. So I was like, well, that sounds like something I could do. I have a graphic design background. Had a friend who put me on to Photoshop Elements, suggested that would be good. Mm-hmm. And I kind of haven't looked back. So I just enjoyed creating my own pages to do something with my photos. I was sharing them online, and I was sending the links to family back in Perth and all around the country, kind of telling about our life. So that's kind of how I got into the digital world.
So, and as anybody will see when they go on your website, you using Adobe Photoshop Elements a lot. So that's all digital. So you don't do scrapbooking with prints anymore these days?
So I don't do very much paper scrapbooking anymore. Yeah. I still have physical scrapbooks where I've kept a few little things, like just various memorabilia and stuff. But mostly what I do is I create something that looks like a paper scrapbook page in Photoshop Elements, and then I save those files and I get them printed through any photo book service. Right, okay. And so my scrapbooks are photo books, but instead of putting them together in their software, I've done it in Photoshop Elements.
And that leaves you, so on a technical side, that means you would export it as PDF, and then you can pretty much use any photo book supplier. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we digital scrappers tend to just export as JPEG, right. And the text is comes through pretty clearly, and I've never had any problems with that. So it's a bit different to the book creation world where you would use PDFs, but we usually just use JPEGs because the benefit of that is you can then upload. So usually you would do it, say you're on Snapfish, and you just put a whole photo over the whole page, and that one photo is your whole digital scrapbook page, which of course can then have as many images as you like. So
Yeah.
it makes it super easy. You don't have to be really techie and understand all the stuff you would for creating a PDF to upload to a printer.
Yeah. Lovely. And it gives you a lot of flexibility that way too, depending on which specials are on at the time with the different providers out there for photo books
Oh
and
yes,
things like that.
we shop around for sure.
Which is great.
So with Photoshop Elements, you mentioned before how you sort of came across it originally, and by the looks of it, you really like it. Can you tell us a little bit more about the program? Because Fiona and I, we both use Adobe products, but not Photoshop Elements. I have looked into it myself in the past, but I really never used it that much. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So Photoshop Elements is Adobe's consumer level photo editing software. And I've worked with Adobe for several years now. I'm part of their beta testing team. And so I'm quite involved with the program. And one thing I love about it is that it is the one-off purchase price. So for a hobbyist who just wants their photos organised, or they want to do, say, one photo book for someone's 70th birthday, they don't have to keep paying monthly for Lightroom or Photoshop Creative Cloud or whatever. So the Photoshop Elements itself comes with two aspects of the program. There's the photo editor, which gives you the ability to edit your photos as you would in Photoshop, but it also has a guided edit mode where it basically walks you through tutorials for how to restore a vintage photo or adjust the skin tones in a photo. So it's almost like when you open it up, it's like a tutorial, but it's built into the program and it's working with your photos. So that's a really great thing if you're not a Photoshop expert.
Yep,
So I love that.
perfect.
And then the next part, which I adore, is the organising system. So I've used their organiser, which comes with Photoshop Elements or Premiere Elements, which is their video editing software. Both of those come with the organiser. And it allows you to organise your photos and videos much as you would in Lightroom or other organising software. But the benefit of that is it's so smart. There's a lot of machine learning that's going on. It does things like recognise your faces. If you have an iPhone or Android, you probably have, is this so-and-so? It asks you that kind of stuff. It can recognise what's happening in your photos. I was very impressed because it recognised cricket as a sport, which Google Photos does not do. So for us Aussies, it also recognises kangaroos and doesn't tell you that they're dogs. So I've done a lot of work with the smarts. So the organiser is great because it means that you don't have to micromanage your files. If you don't enjoy tagging or anything like that, you've got a view with a map of all your photos. So it's really grown and improved over the last, I've been using it since 2008. So yeah, it's a great piece of software that works really well, and they've even added like batch editing options where you can edit a group of photos at once. Somewhat similar to the idea of how you would in Lightroom, but less technical and more consumer focused. And I absolutely love it. I've got Lightroom and the whole Creative Cloud. So I have all the software options and I keep going back to Photoshop Elements because honestly, it's just what you need as a person who's interested in your family photos and all that kind of stuff. It works
Yeah.
perfectly for me.
And so, Melissa, you then help teach others. You offer some fabulous courses and classes and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of how people, if they were thinking about that, or just sort of what sort of options you have available to sort of help people in this area if they're
Mm.
listening and thinking, oh, this is something that might work for me. Yeah, how do you dive into that part for other people?
Well, so at Digital Scrapbooking HQ, I have a variety of self-paced classes. There's a couple that I'd recommend if people are just getting started. If you have Photoshop Elements, whether it's the current version, which is Photoshop Elements 2020, or the previous few, probably back to Photoshop Elements 15. And one thing I would say, if you're listening and you think Photoshop Elements sounds interesting, just, check out if you have a printer. Sometimes the softwares come with a printer or a scanner or something like that. So you might actually have a copy laying around that you didn't know was there, because it's often bundled with other, it might even come with your computer, or it's very accessible. It's around $150. Don't quote me on that. If Officeworks has a special, it could be cheaper. So if you think, oh, that sounds good, I've got a couple of classes. There's photo editing for absolute beginners, where I just start and show you the quickest way to improve the look of your photos. And I also show you how to restore some damaged photos in that class.
Yeah.
And just do some basic things like add text to it, crop it, get it ready for printing, all that kind of thing. Because a lot of people want to edit their photos and print them for photo frames at home, or they don't necessarily want to create a scrapbook like I'm doing. So that's totally fine. So I've got that class for them. But if you are interested in digital scrapbooking, I've also got Digital Scrapbooking for absolute beginners, which is the class I'd recommend if you're interested in learning. So,
Fabulous.
yeah.
Now, can I ask, talking about the scrapbooking aspect? So, one thing is just a simple photo book where you add photos and maybe a bit of caption, but most scrapbookers want to add embellishments, backgrounds, and other more playful things. So, does that come with the software, or how do you where do you get these things from?
Okay, that's a great question. So Adobe Photoshop Elements does have some page elements. They've got frames for your photos. They've got some backgrounds, and those are fine. I don't use them on my own pages because they're not my style. They're kind of more rustic looking. I like things to be clean and colourful. So there's a lot of digital scrapbook stores out there. One of my favourites is Sweet Shop Designs, which has 2 P's and an E in shop. But I'll send you a link for that one.
Okay.
Fabulous.
And there's a dozen other great digital supply shops out there. And what digital scrapbookers do is they'll purchase a kit which might be themed on a birthday or travel, or one of my favourite Aussie designers has done one for travelling in the outback of Australia, which I appreciate.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, shout out to Flurgs, who's in Victoria.
Fabulous.
So there's several Aussie designers, but you can buy from anywhere in the world. And you download those files, you unzip them, and they include image files of papers and embellishments, so you can use them as many times as you like. That's the great thing about digital scrapbooking. So if you love a flower, you could put it on your page 4 or 5 times, and then you still have it for next time. And then you just assemble that in Photoshop Elements, and move all those bits and pieces around until you're happy with how they look.
And because you're saying they're basically image files, you can use that with any software. It's not
Yes, that's right.
specifically made for Elements.
Yeah,
Okay,
so you
interesting.
can use it in any image editing software. People out there use obviously Photoshop and Elements and GIMP and oh my goodness, the one for Mac that escapes me. Oh, I've lost the name of the program. Anyway, but there's any program that can edit photos, you could probably. And I've even got friends who've used PowerPoint or Keynote and just, put a photo on there and dragged other images in. You can do, they're very flexible.
So, Melissa, just say someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, I'd like to have a go. I haven't done a sort of a digital scrapbooking before. Where would you say they should start? I mean, we've got the ongoing issue of people have either unorganized photos or it's overwhelming, or they've got them on their phone or computer or whatever it is, and they would love to do a scrapbook. Can you give us some tips and your sort of insights with what you've been through with people and what you've seen as to where they could start, and things that they should think about?
So I would say if you're wanting to give digital scrapbooking a go, I would say start small. I've had, I work as well as teaching online. I do teach locally and do one-on-one classes with people who are interested. And I've seen a variety of different customers, and usually what works best is to just choose a photo you love, create one page, and if you can, just print it out at home on a piece of A4 paper. It'll come out at about 8 by 8 inches. If you're doing a traditional square shape layout, and just enjoy that and see how you like it. So I would start with something simple, something like your favorite photo, or if you're on your phone, just browse through your favorites and see what appeals to you. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to start with a giant project. One of my clients did a gorgeous photo book for her son-in-law who had been orphaned as a child, and through a long story, she scanned all these photos and made this gorgeous photo book, and it's so inspiring. But she started really small, and the first thing that she did was she just made a page about her grandson's second birthday. And she was like, oh, yeah, that works for me. And then once she got the hang of it, she moved into a bigger project, because it can just be so easy to get overwhelmed. When I first started digital scrapbooking, I think I took multiple days to finish my first layout because I was learning the program. I couldn't remember how to do anything. And that's why I created the classes, so that you can just, I'll just replay that video of Melissa showing me how to get those photos sized correctly.
Yes.
So I would choose a favourite photo, and you know what I love to do? I love to just grab a favourite photo, add a bit of ribbon, a background paper, and then I will often print them at home. And if I like them, I'll print them as a photo canvas.
Yeah.
And then pop them in my children's room. And if you get them on special, it's not too expensive. And it's just so motivating to see something you've made, in your home, and you can actually enjoy that photo.
That's such a great idea, actually, Melissa, because when you think about it, typically in my mind, I'm picturing a book, like a produced book. But what you're saying is just do a few pages, print them out, and pop them on the wall. Love it.
Yeah, or pop them in a photo frame or something, and you that's so motivating. Honestly, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. And just about what's your sort of take or input or advice as far as journaling? Are you a journaler, Chantal?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I tried a few times in the past, but I'm not really. I'm quite pragmatic, and sometimes I do journal a few sentences, and then the next day, I just
And
can't. I don't know.
what's your view on sort of journaling, or your Melissa, with as far as sort of including that as part of scrapbooking? Can you talk a little bit about that to us?
Yes, for sure. I'm a big a fan of journaling, but as Chantal said, I'm quite pragmatic. So if you look at things that I've created, let's take a typical example of, like, say, children's birthday photos. I might do a scrapbook page where I've got 6 photos on the page and a column of journaling, and on that page I'll just be saying, okay, well, my son had a party and these were his friends that came over. This was what they liked best about the party. Whereas another person will be like writing a love letter to their child, which is awesome. And, maybe I'll be inspired to do that one day. But I am a bit more of a practical journaler. At the moment, I'm working on an album for Christmas that I do a bit of a Christmas album each year. And so I will write pretty much, I always write the facts of the date and the year, because you think that you'll remember, but you won't. And then it's so hard to deduce who's what. So I always make sure I include a date and mention who's in the photos. Just because that also can be hard to reverse engineer after the fact.
Yes.
As any of us who've inherited old photos will know.
Yes.
So
True.
that's kind of the important thing. So I would say try to include that on your pages, and I wouldn't get too caught up about journaling. It can be great if you're a writer and you love writing. Go for your life. Sometimes, for example, I just did a page about my daughter who got glasses when she was about 3, and I actually copied and pasted a message that I'd sent to a friend. I had been talking about how she got her glasses, and I was like, I've never told this story. So I copied and pasted it out of Messenger. I edited it a bit, and I popped that on the page. So you can get journaling from anywhere. You can look at your own Facebook feed, Instagram, if that's important to you. But if it's not super important, don't stress. I mean, you're having fun. You're doing something with your photos. Chuck a date on there, even if it's just the year and who's in the photo. And the future generations will be thankful, and you'll thank yourself in 20 years' time.
Yes.
That is so true. That is so true.
That takes away some of the pressure.
Yeah, let's not pressure ourselves about it. I mean, we're doing something with our photos, and that's awesome.
I've got a question that's sort of going a little bit away from journaling and scrapbooking as such. I'm interested to hear, you mentioned in Elements you can actually organize your photos. Is it, does it matter where your photos sit? Or so basically, is it independent? Can they sit in a simple folder structure and that links into the Elements? Or do you have to actually import it and then it's within the program?
Okay, so Elements is a catalogue for your photographs.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you do have to import it, but they can also watch existing folders. So I have a home base for all of my photos, and I have all my photos imported into that location. And anytime I add new photos, say when I plug my iPhone in, or my husband's are all synced up as well. You open up Photoshop Elements and it just automatically pulls in the new photos for you that are in this defined folder. I mean, so you can restrict it to just like your photos folder.
Yeah.
And then what it does is it creates a little thumbnail of your image. It imports all your metadata, and it then any tagging that you do or any work that you do organising within Photoshop Elements, you can write that metadata back to the file as well.
Yes.
So then you're not locked in to
so you
Photoshop
can stop
Elements
using
Organizer.
it any time and you haven't lost anything. It's all there. Yeah.
Yes, I mean there's some things that are inside the program. For example, you can set up your own albums.
Oh, of course, yes.
And that kind of thing. But the important stuff that you do, say you've tagged all the photos as like, store, family reunion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you write that metadata to files, it will still be there in your actual file. So I think it's a really it's quite a good system because it allows you to use the smarts of Photoshop Elements. All the automatic tagging that Elements does isn't actually written to the file. You have to choose to anything that you personally add. That's not an auto tag that can be written to the file. So even though Photoshop Elements is doing all this smarts for you, it's not like it's filling up your files with all this extra metadata.
Yeah,
So it's pretty good how they've set it up.
Yeah,
I mean, I could get
that's
way
great.
so much more technical, but I'll
yeah.
spare the
As
listeners, right?
always. That's so good. That's wonderful. There's so many different things I'm just flicking through also your some of your classes. There's just so many great things in there. So you also touch on organizing, and we talked a little bit about that obviously with the elements, but do you do any of those things outside of the Photoshop or the Adobe software? Or is it
Yeah.
all with people that you work with or things like that?
Yeah, so for any clients, I do one-on-one work either in person or online, just using the magic of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do with clients is I work with their existing system. So if they're using Photos app on their Mac, or if they're using Lightroom, or if they're just not using any software and they're just using their folders, I work with how they want to use their photos, and I don't have like, well, this is my method and this is what's happening. I work with the clients and just help them reach their photo goals. If that just means they want to have their photos in folders by year, that's what we do.
Yeah, fabulous.
So, yeah, my background is I am a qualified librarian and archivist. So I come from I don't know, it's not really an academic, but I am both practical, but also I have a bit of that background knowledge of how and why we organise things. And so I want to work with people so that they feel comfortable. I don't want to come in and say, this is the software that you must learn.
Yeah.
It's much better for people to have a system that they're going to be happy with and
Yeah.
that they're going to continue to use, because then they'll keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've just got so many little pockets of experience there. It's fabulous. I love that. So, Melissa, just if someone's listening and they've, like you've mentioned, they don't really have a system, they don't have a software that they use or anything like that, but they are just, they've found the podcast on organizing their photos and try to get some of their chaos under control, or just get some tidbits and things like that. What advice could you say before we wrap up that you would be able to just encourage people with that are just maybe starting out on this journey of thinking about organizing all their photos and things like that?
So the one thing I teach in my organising that I find is really useful in most situations is if you have your photographs, I mostly think about digital photos because that's one of the most overwhelming parts for people these days. I would suggest setting a home base or deciding a place where all of your photos are going to live, and just collecting them from wherever they are, whether you've got downloaded photos in your downloads folder from your son's, Instagram, Facebook message, they've sent it through to you, or whether you've got your phone, just usually finding a spot on a computer and allocating that for your photos, and then just collecting them all in that one spot. That is the best first step because it makes it really easy to back it up. As you guys are always talking about backing up, I am the same. It makes it easy to back it up and you know where the photos are. So when you come to look, you're not looking on your desktop or on a USB drive or in a any of the 1,000 different places. So
Mm,
just to have a one spot, and that would be my biggest first step.
yeah, so true. It really is. It's so
Mm,
helpful to be able to at least just gather them all together. And
mm.
yeah, that's
And you
fabulous.
don't have to worry about micromanaging at this point. Just pop it all
Yes.
in there. I mean, if you looked at my hard drive, even last year, I had in my photos folder a folder called iPhone Possible Duplicates. And that's real life. Even
Yes.
me,
Yeah,
as like an organizer, I have those things where, okay, I'm not sure about these photos. I need to deal with them at some point.
Yes.
yeah, yes, so true. And that's okay. And just tackle what you can. Slowly but surely you get
Mm.
through.
Mm.
Just consistency, consistency.
Mm,
So,
great.
Melissa, how can people find you if they want to know more and learn a bit more about what you do or your courses, or they're really intrigued with some digital scrapbooking? What's the best way that people can find you?
So the best place to find me is at digitalscrapbookinghq.com, and that is a mouthful, so we'll have a link in the show
We
notes.
will.
And there you can find, if you pop on the homepage, there's actually a free printable download that you can get. You just click on the main image, and it's about 5 things to know before you start scrapbooking. So if you're interested in scrapbooking, that will probably give you an idea of what you need to get started, and that'll give you some emails from me that walk you through thinking about what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's classes and all kinds of tutorials on the website. And a lot of my you'll get familiar with me through videos and through tutorials, and I'd be happy to help you. And um, you can contact me on the website or just reply to any email that you've signed up for, and that comes through, and I can help you out.
Fabulous. That's great. And I just want to jump in. I know this is like another whole topic, but you're also a forever ambassador. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I
So can
am.
you just
Yeah.
in just wrap up in what is forever?
So Forever is a system which it's a cloud storage um, service, and
Yep.
what they do is, instead of having a monthly payment that you have to continue forever, um, say with Dropbox or something, they actually, instead of renting your space, you purchase space from them, and much like um, a grant funding system, they actually have a special guarantee fund, which a large portion of your fees go to, and that actually will guarantee that your photo storage will continue on for um, your lifetime plus 100 years, which is scary to think about. Um,
Yeah.
but they're different from current photo storage. So for me, I love Forever because it is that once off payment,
Mm-hmm.
and you have that space, and I use that for my most important photos that I'm going to want to hand down to the future
Beautiful.
generations. And and they have a lot of other services, but that's their flagship, I guess, is their photo storage. So if
Great.
anyone's
Well,
interested about that, you can also contact me.
yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Melissa. It's been a real joy to have you with us. And it's been very interesting and inspiring just to hear what you do. You've obviously got such a passion for it, as well as a lot of knowledge. So we'll put all those links that we've mentioned in the show notes. And for our listeners, please don't forget to leave us a review, or you're always welcome to give feedback. If you've got questions that have come out of today, or just please get in touch with Melissa directly, and jump onto our social media channels as well. And I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. And thanks again, Melissa, for being here, for joining us. And happy photo organising, everyone.